is Wednesday, my dudes, and yes, you are watching The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lancia. So coming up, we're talking about a player chewing up 20% of his team's salary cap who is now being forced to study. Oh, man. All right, we play What's in the Hat because I think we finally have the rules down correct. So that's going to be with Steve and Nick Fryer, frenemies. Some last-minute Rocket Mortgage Classic DFS picks are also on the menu today, so Jeff and Len will join us for that to wrap up the show. But right now, everybody, right now, because we like to live life dangerously. Indeed, we do. Let's look ahead to, let's look ahead to the upcoming college football season with Julian Edlow. Yeah, let's go, Jules. Good morning.
Thank you, Emerson.
It's good to see you. I've missed you. How you been?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome now that your face is on our television here in the studio.
Not doing well enough to be wearing a suit today, though.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna, bring it down a notch. I'm a man of the people. We touched on some of your favorite futures bets earlier this week. I don't know if you remember that, but as for win totals that you were interested in, let's look at Baylor here, the defending Big 12 champion. So finished college football season number 5 in the final AP poll. The regular season win total here, looking at it, 7.5 on the DK Sportsbook. You want to go over or under here? They did lose some key pieces to the NFL draft. I feel like they do every year.
They did lose some key pieces, but they're still very well coached and return, I think it's 12 starters from that team, and they're playing in a declining Big 12. So I think it's a lack of respect here for the defending champs. This is a team that finished the season ranked in the AP top 5. I know you lose pieces. You can't really base it off of last year, and you're laying some good juice here, minus 150 on over 7.5. But you look at the schedule, I think they can get there. You got Texas on the decline, Oklahoma, new coach, a lot of new players. We don't know exactly what they're going to be, and they just automatically get the love as the favorites in the conference and 9.5 win total. I think that Baylor can absolutely get to 8 or 9 wins and have a shot to play in and win the Big 12 title game again. They're plus 220 on DK Sportsbook to play in the Big 12 title game, and they're plus 650 to win the game if you want to put some sprinkles there. But I think this team is winning between 8 and 10 games, so I'll gladly take the over 7.5.
Just you wait until UCF joins that conference, man. It is.
Yeah,
cool.
That's going to be really scary.
It's going to be really wild. Yeah, your 2017 national champion. Sorry, not sorry, Bama. Hey, let's talk about Virginia here. Virginia finished last season 6-6, 2022 win total 7.5, Jules. So I know they have a first-year head coach. You got all those new changes to the offense that come with that. So how do you feel about the Wahoos going over with at least 8 wins?
Absolutely under, and I'll lay the minus 150 juice here again, but I don't mind doing this if the number is significantly off what it should be, and I think this is significantly off. Phil Steele came on unreasonable odds. He kind of turned me on to this one. I didn't have UVA as much on my radar as some other teams that we talked about. As you mentioned, I do remember we spoke earlier in the week, and we talked about those ACC teams. I asked him if there's anything else that jumped out in the ACC to him, and Phil's generally very positive. He'll bring up a team that he wants to get behind. He brought up Virginia and the under here. Like you mentioned, 6-6 last year. Why are they going to improve to 8-4 this year? They bring the quarterback back, Brennan Armstrong, who's very good, and he has some good receivers, but lack of running game. They turn over the entire offensive line, so the protection is all going to be different. And the defense has been dreadful and did nothing to really get better. So you look at this schedule, they play some tough games, Miami, Pittsburgh, at Virginia Tech, Louisville. I just don't see what's on the schedule that says that this team is going to get 2 games better. I think, if anything, they're right around the same, and they'll be another 6-6 team. Yeah,
Brendan Armstrong was named to the Davey O'Brien Award watch list, but so was every other quarterback.
Everybody's on the watch list for the awards. It's 20 or 25 candidates. I could be on the watch list.
Yeah, it's true. You really could be. And then and I think you mentioned too, I was looking at the schedule. It's a difficult combination of tricky road spots here early on, and then the projected losses stacking up late for that team. But Bronco Mendenhall now out of town. The Nevada Wolfpack, though, they went 8-5 last year, Jules. You don't often see a program that has won at least 7 games for 4 straight seasons, in a total rebuild. But that's kind of the situation that we have here. Currently just 5. That's their win total in 2022. New head coach, 6 starters returning on the whole roster. Can you get some value on the over here, or is this going to be a rough season?
Yeah, thank you for making one of the points that I forgot about UVA, that they are making a coaching change from a very good coach,
Yeah.
and Nevada making a coaching change. And like you said, 6 starters back. This team, that one moved, by the way. That was minus 120 last I looked, and now it's minus 140 on the under. I wish I had written it up in article form already. I haven't, so I'm going to have to do it with the minus 140, but that's fine with me. The win total here should be like 4.5, and some other books have it at 4.5. And that's probably the correct number. I think this team is going to win 4 or 5 games. So you're looking at a win or a push. But yeah, people might be afraid to take an 8-win team on the under 5 the following season. They lost everybody. Like you said, 6 returning starters, but they lost overall like 45 players that played for them last season are off of this roster. Hawaii is the only other team in the conference that is going to be as poor as Nevada here. So this one's going to be tough because Nevada is going to be favored in its first 3 games, but they will probably be a dog in 8 of their other ones and a pick 'em against somebody like Colorado, who's on the schedule. Sorry, Colorado's not even on the schedule. Colorado State. They're going to be dogs almost all the way out after those first 3. So even if they start 3-0, I still think this team maybe has one more game left in them, and they wind up sitting around 4-8. If they upset someone too, and get to 5 wins, then hey, we get our money back in November.
You know, I believe Florida's also starting like a new head coaching era too. I went ahead on a couple week 1 games with you before you take off, Jules. So we mentioned the other day when we talked to you, like Utah, you really love Utah. You see them win in the Pac-12. You like them to go over 9 wins as well. They open up the season at Florida on September 3rd. This is the Urban Meyer Memorial Bowl. Utah favored by 2. I mean, they're traveling across the country here, dude. Which way are you leaning in this one right now?
You guys know where I'm leaning. I told you Utah's going to win. I told you Utah's going to win 11 games this year. Utah, they opened plus 1.5. They were underdogs in this game. It's already moved, and now it's late July. This game's played Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and by then I expect it to be at least 3. So I'm betting it now. Utah in this game, they're the more experienced team. They know how to play on the road, and Florida's coming in with the coaching change and with some new guys. Florida's a decent team. I don't have much bad to say about Florida here. This isn't as much a Florida fade as it is just getting a short number on what I expect to be the much better team. Like Florida's going to be a team that, you know, their win total set at 7. They're going to hold their own, but Utah is a top 5 team to me. So getting a team with that type of ceiling at this price in week 1, even if it's at the Swamp on the road in their first game, I will take it gladly.
Like not to be that guy, but like the humidity. Okay, I mean the humidity and heat, like in Florida, is nothing compared to what the Utes experience in Utah. Like early season cross country trips for Pac-12 teams typically don't end too well.
Yeah, I mean nobody knows that like you growing up in a trailer park in Jacksonville. So you can tell us about the heat and the humidity.
It's
and whatnot.
gross, dude.
You know, Utah will be ready for it. Yeah. They play UCLA, they play USC, they know how to handle the heat. This is a veteran crew. We'll be all right.
Okay, man. Well, I got one more for you because we did talk some UNC, right? UNC and then App State. App State always seems to be on the radar of everybody early in the season, like at least pumping a scare into their opponents. We talked UNC on Monday. You like the under on their win total of 7.5. They do open as a 3-point favorite on the road against App State. You want to call an upset here? Do it.
Absolutely. There's only so many teams I can have an opinion on here, so you know when these week 1 games tie into my win totals where I'm going. UNC plays a game against, I think it's Florida A&M to start, so they have another team that they will beat that is on the schedule that they have to prepare for. This is in the week 0 schedule. This is the week 1 opener for App State. So it's in state. It's the big school that they want to upset. They're at home. It's a very tough place for visitors to play. And App State's just really good. They bring back a lot of guys. They're a very good team. And as you know, I'm low on UNC. I think App State is going to be amped for this one. They're going to get the upset at home. The money line's not open yet. I'll play it on the money line when it does. But that field goal is going to go away. You already see the minus 115 juice on the plus 3. This is going to go under a field goal. So I've already taken the +3 on App State, and I'll take a little money line when it's available. They're just the better team. We're getting the better team at home with the points.
Yeah, and new quarterback, as you mentioned the other day, too, for UNC, and I think only 5 starters returning on offense. Although
UNC is going to have a rookie quarterback this year, and they have one very good receiver. They're not bringing back much else in terms of skill position guys. So
yeah, that's
solid defense, but I really expect that offense to struggle.
Yeah, that's I think that's Josh Downs, right? So he's a good foundational piece. Man, they hit 101 receptions, 1,300 yards. Yeah, not bad. But again, that was with Sam Howell at quarterback. Okay, you're done. Appreciate your help. Anything you want to tease for your podcast this week?
Well, first of all, I'm not done. I'm going to come back and argue with other people rather than argue with myself and talk some NFL.
Yes. Okay, cool. That's it. Never mind. No, don't worry about it. You don't have to tease your podcast anymore.
You should listen to the Phil Steele podcast before you do your college football research. It's fantastic. And next week, we're going to be talking some season-long NFL player props and preview some NFL with Adam Levitan on the podcast.
All right,
and when I say we, I mean me and my guests, because Steve Buchanan just doesn't work anymore.
It's true. He told me that when we were in LA together. He's like, I actually
hanging out in LA. Sounds like tough work.
He hates doing the podcast, especially with you. All right, so stick around because I want to get your thoughts on Julio Jones now joining Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. But coming up, guys, right after this break, we'll get into Kyla Murray's touchdown potential next. He's now has homework. He has to study. He has to look at film. But the guys on last night's episode of The Slate, let's see what they said as they received the Julio Jones news.
Part of the list because I agree. I think it's crap, but Burrow probably a little high, but he's in that mix. That shows the confidence the league has in him.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We should talk about Julio Jones too.
Oh, that's right. To Tampa.
Yes. I don't know entirely how relevant Julio is at this point in his career. You know, he's coming off of a terrible year with the Titans. He had 31 catches, 434 yards, 1 touchdown, all career lows. He only played in 10 games, but I do think it's fair to point out that Tennessee passing attack last year was atrocious. It was basically just feed the ball to AJ Brown, and that was it. You know, nobody else did anything. So if you look at a lot of his like metrics, yards per target, catch percentage, like a lot of that stuff is kind of similar to his numbers from when he was playing in Atlanta. So I do think that there's at least a chance that he's not done. And the Bucks certainly have some targets available with Antonio Brown gone and with Gronkowski gone, at least for the time being. And they did bring in Russell Gage, who will offset some of them. But this comes down to whether or not Julio Jones is done or not. And I think if the overwhelming majority of people think, yes, Julio is done, I will be on the other side and I'll be happy to take some arbitrage shots at him. But if the narrative is that, oh, Julio's going to be playing with Tom Brady and everything's going to be great, then I'm fine with fading him too. So it's really going to come down to how the fantasy community, how the sports betting community reacts to this news. The real winner, of course, is Tom Brady, right? I mean, the guy, just another weapon for him to lean on.
Yeah, listen, he's not the guy who led the league in receiving yards in 2018. But that's not to say he doesn't have, value either. Although expectations should be somewhere in the middle. You can see the numbers on your screen, kind of what he's done the last 2 seasons versus just his 2019 campaign. Overall, he has suffered through some injuries, as you would expect. A guy who's been as good as he has for this long, and he's now 33 years young. DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow's back, and we also got Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich joining the party. So we'll get into some over-under here in just a second. But, Jeff, what are realistic expectations now for Julio Jones with the Buccaneers on this 1-year deal?
I mean, he's going to come in and steal a few targets away, but it's not going to be – he's not going to turn into – it's not going to be like a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins thing where he's taken away like half the receptions from Mike Evans. Julio Jones is a guy to give them some depth, to give them some breathing room until Chris Godwin gets back in. he's still got some juice left. He averaged 14 yards per reception last year with Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. So I think that with Julio, one thing to consider is you may get a couple spike weeks from him, and I do think that you'll see him out there. But I think his primary usage is just going to be draw some coverage away from Mike Evans, open up the field a little bit from him. This is really more of a fantasy impact, if we're being honest. Like the betting side, I actually would be more bullish on betting Mike Evans over with Julio Jones in the mix because I think it'll free him up a little bit more. But your Russell Gage shares are going down. Julio's shares are going up a little bit. But don't get super excited. This is not like a top 20 wide receiver anymore. He's just a guy to give him some room and perhaps help them for another championship run.
Yeah, Pierce, I mean, a quarterback like Tom Brady will love his reliability and professionalism, at least, that Jones brings to the table. Question is, can the dude stay healthy?
Jeff Ulrich, the Debbie Downer. Get excited. Have some fun. This is interesting. They've got 4 amazing wide receivers. Julio Jones is probably the 4th best receiver on this team. You could never say that during his entire career. Rarely was he even the 2nd best. He's always number 1. He's always facing the number 1 cornerback. He's always dealing with double coverage. The last couple of seasons, he was battling injuries. He didn't really have great quarterback play. Offensive lines that he was on weren't that great. He was dealing again with number 1 cornerbacks. He was dealing with massive coverage in the red zone. He's going to be dealing with the 4th best cornerback. He might even be guarded by linebackers at times. He could have an explosive season. Maybe he doesn't get 1,000 yards. Maybe he doesn't catch 100 receptions. But he's absolutely going to be a monster in the red zone. I mean, this team looks awesome on Madden, by the way. You would love to play with this team. And, that doesn't even talk about the tight ends that they have. It's frightening. It's terrifying what Tampa is going to roll out. And it is also, Jeff kind of alluded to this, terrifying what it means for DFS, because I don't think you're going to be able to trust any of these Tampa receivers any given week.
Yeah, Jules, I mean, the signing will hopefully ensure, at least for the Bucs, that this team is not in the position that it was down the stretch last year with that position, thinning out. He's not the player he used to be, but it's great depth and experience.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches for Tampa Bay. And, like the guys kind of hit on, it's not going to change their odds to win the NFC. It's not going to change their odds to win the Super Bowl, and it shouldn't. But it's depth. It makes them more reliable. And, as you touched on, Emerson, there's probably not anybody on this roster that's going to go crazy in the middle of a game and quit and ruin the team's depth at wide receiver. They have Julio Jones to fill in early for injuries, and then they have him as a depth piece down the line. They have all very talented wide receivers. And remember, with Gronk gone, they have other tight ends to fill in, but Julio Jones in that size, not that he's going to play tight end, but he can fill in for Gronk as that red zone target that maybe doesn't play as much in the middle of the field. Of course he will. You can draw up a play for Julio Jones to go deep at the middle of the field, but if you want to preserve him a little bit with his injury history, he's a fantastic red zone target. So yeah, it just, it's not going to move odds. It is going to make things more complicated for DFS and fantasy. But it just makes the Bucs that much stronger of a candidate in the NFC.
All right, Pierce, let's stay in the NFC South because Sam Darnold said yesterday, I'm cool with Baker Mayfield, ahead of their competition, their quarterback competition. The head coach, Matt Rule, says will come down to performance on the field. Shocker. In our eyes, we're both the starting quarterback, says Sam Darnold. Well, Sam Darnold, that simply cannot happen. In the DK Sportsbook, Pierce clearly thinks Baker's the front runner as his season passing yards total is set at 3,800 and a half. And you can't even get a number on Darnold. So is this an easy under to actually take on Baker? Or do you feel it's more of a stay-away spot?
No, I'm going to take the over on Baker. As the resident Baker Mayfield apologist, I'm expecting a pretty good season from him. The Panthers have improved their offensive line. With CMC healthy, creates all kinds of problems for the defense. That's going to open up Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. And how hard is it to dump the ball off 11 times to Christian McCaffrey? You start to build up numbers pretty quickly doing that. We've seen previous Panthers quarterbacks have some pretty massive days just by throwing a little 5-yard pass to CMC, and then he runs wild. And then as you do that more, defenses have to honor it. And again, you open up Moore and Anderson down the field. And then also, new offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo is there. He wasn't really great as a head coach, but last season he was a great offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. I spent a decade with Green Bay, was pretty solid there. I expect them to do pretty well. And also, look, if they believed in Sam Darnold, they wouldn't have drafted Matt Corral. And if they believed in Sam Darnold, they wouldn't have traded for Baker Mayfield. It's Baker's team, and 3,800 yards is not that many.
Jules, are you with Pierce here? Like, how confident are you in him hitting the over 3,800.5 passing yards?
Yeah, I think he should have a decent season, and he's absolutely going to be the week 1 starter. I mean, we see all these numbers shifting already, including the week 1 line, which is against who? The Cleveland Browns. You think he's going to miss that game? You think he's not going to put himself in position to play in that game and beat Cleveland? That's absolutely what he wants to do. And if he looks good in the process, that's his job. So in terms of the number, we've been doing plenty of these segments, and I always say how hard it is to take an over, but it's a little bit different with quarterbacks. You expect a bounce back year from him here. He should be pretty well protected, and Pierce makes good points. Like, the 2 receivers that he has are both guys that you can get deep balls to and get chunks there. And then when you're not doing that, you can dump it down to McCaffrey and chip away at those cheap yards. Like, it's not a pretty over here, but I don't think I would be betting the under. So this would be an over or pass for me.
Jeff, you want to make an argument here on the under, or is this a clean sweep?
Where's the Baker Mayfield confidence coming from? I just don't understand. This is a playoff.
He had one bad year when he was like really
one bad
hurt.
year. He's a first overall draft pick who got traded. He didn't even get a contract extension. This is Mitch Trubisky stuff we're talking about. Where is this confidence coming from? I don't understand it. There's still a QB competition. Like, look, I agree. Like, the number itself isn't terrible. If we were sure that this was Baker Mayfield's team and that we had any confidence that Baker Mayfield could actually stay on the field for 17 games. He really hasn't proven anything to us, though, during his time in the NFL. And I know, look, like, players get second chances. I think Baker, there's still talent there. But I have no reason to want to take the over on this one. I actually am surprised this number is on the board, to be honest. Look, the Panthers, I agree. Like, they don't have confidence in Sam Darnold, but they paid Sam Darnold. He's not leaving. Like, he's going to be there, and he's going to be a presence. And if Baker puts 2 stinkers in a row together, you're probably going to see Sam Darnold. And there goes your over bet. Yeah, I think the under is very bettable here for the simple fact that the Sam Darnold shadow here is just going to be there all year. And there may not even be like that high a percentage. Even if it's just a 10% chance that Darnold comes in, steals a game or 2, that's really helping your under here. So I'm surprised. I'm not surprised by Pierce. I'm more surprised by Julian that there's so much Baker Mayfield love on this broadcast. I just can't trust him right now. I agree. Like, the number's not terrible, but it's just the situation. You just can't do it. I just don't think you can take the over.
Wow, Jules. Papa Jeff is not happy with you right now.
I said if I was going to bet it, I would lean to the over.
Okay, let's go. Let's go from one Heisman Trophy winner there at Oklahoma, who's the #1 overall pick, to another. So Kyla Murray here. We talked about him a little bit last week, guys. We discussed the DK special, looking for him to go over 4,000 passing yards and 500 rushing yards. But now the juicy details come out that he has a film study clause in his contract. So first, Jeff, how alarming is this? I mean, to contractually obligate Murray to do something most teams consider fundamental to being an extremely high-paid NFL starting quarterback.
Oh, how alarming is it? It's like, it's 5 alarms. I mean, this is silly stuff. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the player. It's embarrassing for the organization. You think the Cincinnati Bengals, when they finally extend Joe Burrow, are going to have this in their contract? You try to put that in like Joe Burrow's contract, you'll probably laugh you out of the room. I mean, like, this is weird. Like, it really is. I think it's an indictment of just how this organization is handling the player, and maybe of the player itself a little bit too. But regardless, we're talking about the prop here. I'm obviously not bullish on the Cardinals for next year. I think they're potentially a good fade candidate, but we're talking touchdown props. We're talking Kyla Murray, and
okay. So
I still think this number is a little low. Like, I really do. I mean, I think that if we can't project injury, but if Kyler is out there for 15 to 16 games, 25.5, I would expect him to go over that. I'm not rushing out to bet this one like I was kind of the Baker Mayfield one, but I'm not going to lean under here. I just feel like this total is too low for guys talented as Kyler Murray. The Cardinals, if they do regress, are just going to pass the ball more. So I think this total is a little bit low. It's not super low, but it's still a total that I would lean over on rather than under.
Jules, Murray now the quarterback who had to be contractually obligated to do his homework. Does this make you want to go under his season passing touchdown total of 25.5?
No, if anything, I think it might be a little motivational for him. And we have the narrative that Hopkins won't be there for the first 6 games, and we have the narrative that Murray uses his legs to score to take away some touchdowns. But the bottom line is just that 25.5 is too low for a guy this talented with this kind of weapons, even without Hopkins for a little period of time. So this would be over or pass for me. But the thing that sticks out to me is the like putting 4 hours a week in this contract. Like that's not even like Tom Brady probably does 4 hours a day of this. So I don't think it's necessarily in there because they believe that he needs to do these 4 hours. It's there because they want people to see that it's there so that people know that he needs to study so that he can start studying. There's no way to check if he does the 4 hours of studying. Like this is like I'm in high school and my dad's like, all right, dude, you got to do well on this test. Like I'll give you $100 if you go study in your room for an hour every night.
Wow.
Well, guess what? I can go in my room and play video games for an hour every night. And that's why I'm here talking fantasy football with you bozos. Like he can do whatever he wants. It's just that they want people to know that this is in the contract so that people know that he has to study, and we'll see if he does it.
Wow, what a life, Pierce, huh? Like Dad says he'll give you $100 just to go study. I mean, over 25.5 touchdowns? Do you agree this is too low?
There's a way that you can check on this. Just make him take a quiz at the end. That's what corporate does for everybody else. They make you watch those stupid videos that you minimize and you ignore. Then when it's over, you just Google the answers. So, Kyler, all he's got to do is like Google coverage zero blitzes, how to read them, and then just find the Quizlet. And so, that's the easy way to get around this.
Cole's notes.
I'll take the under. And it's because Cliff Kingsbury likes to run the ball. You look at James Conner, he had 15 rushing touchdowns last season. Kyla Murray had 11 in 2020. This is a run-first team. The only reason I would go against this, though, is that on paper, it's just a strange amalgamation of players that they have in their depth chart with their tight ends. That there's some weird synergy that could happen. If anyone's going to bring that out, it will be Cliff Kingsbury, but he's got to decide to pass the ball first. So he's been committed to the run the last 2 seasons. And if they're just going to keep running, then I'll gladly take the under.
All right, well, let's go to a passing yard total here, and we'll talk about the hoodie. We'll talk about Bill Belichick yesterday praising second-year quarterback Mac Jones, built by the city of Jacksonville, saying that he has made tremendous strides this offseason. Jeff, are they tremendous enough that you feel confident taking over 3,950.5 passing yards? It's basically, you're banking on a 4,000-yard season here from Mac Jones.
Yeah, I do think this total is just a little bit low. I mean, I will take it. I think that the fact that the Patriots are a run-first team and you're kind of just getting that aura of, they want to run the ball. Mac Jones didn't throw the ball much. It's just making this total a little bit lower than it should be. You look at what Mac Jones did in his rookie year. He averaged 7.3 yards per reception. That's bigger than Josh Allen. That puts him right beside Tom Brady. Like, he had a really good rookie year. You saw he put up 3,800 yards on an offense that rushed the ball the 7th most times in the league. I don't think that Patriots rushing play percentage is getting any higher. Anything, you'll probably see a little bit of regression. I know they have some great early down backs, but they also spent high draft capital to beef up the wide receiver room, made a trade. This is clearly a team who just wants to be a little bit more versatile. Belichick knows he needs a little bit more explosive plays. I think he does go over this, absolutely. The other thing I like about Mac Jones and taking overs, like he's a pocket quarterback. He takes care of himself. Played 17 games. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and just like throw himself into the line. He's not getting hit a ton like Joe Burrow, who sometimes just gets a little bit too cavalier with what he can do. So I think Mac Jones is a really steady guy. I think he's going to play 17 games again. I think he will go over this.
All right, Pierce. I mean, he's a dude who didn't really throw downfield a whole lot last year.
Well, who is he going to throw the ball downfield to?
Well, now,
a couple times he went to Bourne, and if Bourne and Myers can be just average, and then you throw in, they've got Devontae Parker now, James White's going to be healthy. So he had 3,800 last season with very limited weapons. They've definitely upgraded the pass catchers. They've got a handful of tight ends that he can pass to. And I know we say that the Patriots like to run the ball, but that's not always been the case. They've been a running team when they had the personnel for running. When they had the personnel for throwing the ball downfield, that's what Belichick did. They don't have Randy Moss right now, but they're closer to a more pass-oriented team. I would imagine they will cut Mac Jones loose. And the other thing I will add, though, with the compliment, going into last season, Belichick threw a couple compliments the way of Cam Newton.
Yeah.
And we saw how that worked out. So a Bill Belichick compliment is pretty much worthless.
Okay, this was a very strong compliment, though, Jules. Do you expect more out of your guy in Foxborough, taking the over?
I do. As long as your name isn't Tom Brady and you play quarterback for Bill Belichick, he'll compliment you. That's the way that it seems
True.
to work. But you go from 3,800 as a rookie. He should have a 4,000-yard season in his second year. Just the progression, the development, and there are some additions in the passing game. In Parker, they spent the whatever it was, third or fourth round pick on the kid from Baylor that is a burner down the field. The tight ends can only get better. It seems like, and like Jeff touched on as well, like Mac Jones is a guy that's going to stand in the pocket. He's not going to be running around taking away yards that way. He's not going to be running around to risk himself getting hurt. So like you should get the most out of him in terms of games played and in terms of passing attempts. It is a run first team, but I'm kind of low on the Patriots this year in terms of how good they'll actually be. I think they might take a step back overall as a team, but that doesn't mean that Mac Jones will take a step backwards. But the reason I bring that up, if you're trailing in games, chipping away, getting 100 yards, 150 yards in some fourth quarters when you're down 14 points, those are the type of things that add up to get you over these yardage totals. But I love the safety for Jones to be out there for a lot of games, and I think that just the natural progression of year one to year two and getting a little bit of help at receiver with some deep threats should get him there.
All right, Jules, Pierce, you two are free to go. Fantastic work. Jeff, stick around. We need you for some Rocket Mortgage Classic DFS picks coming up. Right after this break, though, what's in the hat with Steve and Nick Fryer? I think we have finally nailed down the rules for this game right after this.
What's in that?
Yeah, you're looking at the screen right now. That's just a generic graphic of the sweat because we were going to put up the rules of this new game that we started a couple weeks ago. What's in the hat? But we can't seem to get that right. We're trying to nail it down. So let me just explain it to you here, people. This game, What's in the Hat, with DraftKings contributor Steve Buchanan, by the way, and Nick Fryer. Nick Fryer's got an awesome hat on. Steve is already very excited for this segment. So the analysts will take turns drawing names from the hat here, right? You see this? And then assigning them to one of the four categories, which is going to be 20-plus fantasy points, 10-plus fantasy points, 5-plus fantasy points, or 0 fantasy points. One player per category. Each analyst has one pass. If you pass on a player, the other analyst must slot that player into one of their categories. So we will score each category based on the criteria and keep track of each week's outcome. Simple enough, right? If you missed it, rewind and watch again. So, I'm going to let Steve go first, according to producer Tom Glennon in my ear. The first...
I'm going ahead. He goes first?
Dude, I don't make the rules, bro. We don't even know the rules. Braxton Garrett, let's go. What do you want, Steve?
So I'm actually going to use my pass right away on this one.
Yes.
Because that's just how the rules are. And let me ask you something. Who's doing the graphics today? Who can't put this together?
Probably Grafiki, yeah. Probably
I don't even know
Howie.
who that is. Who
That's
is that?
Howie.
Who is that?
That's Howie. That's his nickname. That's Howie's
Oh,
nickname.
it's Howie. Let me tell you something. Howie sucks. All right, let's just pass along. Give it a Nick, and he's gonna take Braxton Garrett.
Go ahead.
I'm fine with taking him at 7.9K. Let's see. So we got a couple guys that we can slide into the 20-point range. He is one of them.
Whoa.
He's coming off a pair of 27 DK fantasy point performances. So he's going up against the Reds tonight. So I'm going to put him in my 20 spot.
Wow.
I know there's some other good options that I'm sure will come across here, but you look at the Reds. They have a 102 ISO against left-handed pitching this month, 26.6% hard contact rate, and the big number that jumps out to me, of course, we're talking strikeout potential, very important. He's coming off 7 strikeout and 11 strikeout performances. The Reds have a 26% K rate against left-handed pitching this month. So yeah, put me down for 20 plus from Garrett tonight.
All right, Steve, using his pass right away. Nick taking it straight to the top of the board, 20-plus fantasy points. Bukes, next one here. Next one. What do we got? Cedric Mullins, dude, of the Orioles, who, by the way, leapfrogged your Red Sox last night. Red Sox last in the AL East. What do you want with this dude? Where are you going to put him?
That is correct, but you know what? They say they're not going to trade Devers and Bogart. So if that's the case, then fine. You want to be in last place, whatever, okay? Seattle is like, a stranglehold on the wild card. Anyways, Cedric Mullins going tonight. He's been fantastic coming out of the All-Star break. 6 for 22. He has 4 runs scored, a couple of stolen bases there. Let me put him down for 10 DraftKings fantasy points in this one, going against Drew Rasmussen. I always say his name wrong. I don't care. His name is Drew. We'll stay that. Producer Drew. We like producer Drew. We don't like Howie. Cedric Mullins, though, has been fantastic coming out of the break, like I mentioned. Rasmussen, Drew, has got some good numbers across the board, but with the way that Mullins is hitting, $4,100 tonight, too, as well. I think he's good for at least a stolen base in this game, maybe a hit, so that would be right in that 10K range, that 10-point range. So give me Mullins at 10 DraftKings fantasy points tonight.
Okay, all right. Come on over here, Billy. Come on over here. Bring the camera. I want you to pick this time, Billy. Can you put your hand out?
Let's go,
ahead.
Billy.
Don't trust Billy
put
to
it
do
in.
anything.
Here we go. Here we go. And Billy has, flip it over, my dude. Who do you have? Who do you have? I can't. Anthony Santander, another Orioles star here. Let's go. I think is it Nick's turn? Is it Nick's turn now?
Yeah, it's Nick.
Okay. All right. So it's Nick's turn. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, rock solid. Okay, so I like him. Okay, I look at him and think 10, 5. I know he's coming. He just had a home run. I'm probably gonna put Santander down for my 5-point slot.
Okay.
3.9K. We talked about Rasmussen, and Steve didn't highlight the splits, so I'll do that right here. Rasmussen, 26.1% line drive rate against left-handed hitters over his last 4 starts. I know he's got a 2.53 ERA against left-handed hitters in that stretch, but he's got a 4.29 FIP. Santander, he's got 4 extra base hits in his last 6 games. The last 2 have been home runs. I know his ISO on the month hasn't been all that great, but he's hitting a healthy amount of line drives and a lot of fly balls against right-handed pitchers. So I love him in this spot against Rasmussen.
Okay, here we go. Next, Bukes, you are up. Luis Castillo, talk to me, Goose.
There we go. This is why I passed, because I was hoping I'd get Castillo, because he's absolutely getting slotted into the 20-point range here tonight going against the Marlins. This is one of the most highly coveted starters on the trade market right now, and for great reason. The Marlins have been struggling offensively coming out of the All-Star break. Only 6 games here, but they're averaging 3 runs per game in that span. They've been shut out twice already. They're only around league average in K rate against righties, but that's okay because Castillo has been inducing some nasty swing and miss rate as of late. He has been stellar after really low expectations to come into the season. This is somebody who really struggled last year, has totally turned it around this time around with the offensive struggles that the Marlins have endured really since in the whole month of July, but especially after the All-Star break, giving him for another stellar start, solidifying his spot in the trade deadline talk. So give me Castillo over 20 DraftKings fantasy points.
All right, we got a Reds player, Marlins players, a couple guys from the O's. Both Nick and Steve have used their 20-plus point fantasy point category player dudes things now. All right.
Right there.
All right, Fryer, this one's for you, man. Who do we have? Brandon Drury, another guy from the Reds.
Okay.
Wow, we're going with these powerhouse players with these powerhouse programs.
Yeah, I mean, this is a small slate tonight, so that's why we're running into all this kind of weirdness, with kind of double dipping. And as much as I do like Braxton Garrett in this spot, he gave up a home run in his last start, still had a great outing, all around. I do like Drury going up against him. I do think he has a good matchup. He's 5.1K. So this is tough because there are some other good hitters left on the board still, but I'm going to go with Drury in my 10 spot here. He's got a 48.5% hard contact rate against left-handed pitching over his last 47 plate appearances, 51.5% fly ball rate, and it's all led to a 489 ISO during that stretch. So how can you not like him in this spot tonight against any lefty?
Wait, so where'd you put him? 10 points?
10
okay.
points, yep.
All right, hold on a second. We have a special guest here, Steve, to pick the next name out of the hat, and lo and behold, who can it be? It's Howie, who, to quote you, sucks. Howie sucks. What name do you have, dude? Here.
It's probably going to be.
I think we got a little Jaron Duran action.
Jaron Duran. Dude, Steve, this is your guy. He wasn't even in the lineup last night, I believe.
I'm actually shocked that there was something on the piece of paper, knowing how awful Howie is at graphics. So I expected a blank piece of paper.
I wish you could hear this. He's
out.
saying very nice things
I got
about
it
you.
in.
Oh, you can hear him?
Wow.
Yeah. No response to that. Go back there and learn the graphics.
Thank you
I'm
so
going to
much
put
for your
Duran. I'm going to put him in the 10 spot. Not crazy about it, but at least there's one thing. What's the matter, Fryer?
Well,
Hey,
hold
would
on.
you like-
No.
Go ahead, finish up. Go ahead.
You've already put someone in the 10 spot. You put Cedric Mullins there.
Oh, that's right. All right, so it's got to be 5 then. I got to put him in the 5 spot.
Okay.
And that actually probably is a good thing because I think he can go over 5 because he's going up against Cal Quantrill, who has been brutal against lefties. 7.41 FIP against them, 1.2 home run per 9 inning. And you might actually be surprised about this. Quantrill has allowed the second most stolen bases in the American League, 12 stolen bases against him, trailing only Noah Syndergaard. Right now, Durant has stolen about 7 stolen bases since he's been called up here, so you might be able to get maybe a walk and a stolen base here, which would go over that 5 DraftKings fantasy points. So I'll put him in the 5 spot. But see, this is the bad thing about this game is that whoever get next has to be 0. So I'm hoping I'm not getting like an absolute banger or something. But Nick, that's the strategy. You put your hands up. That's part of the strategy.
Why don't you put him in a 0 spot? That's the first thing. I'm like, oh, that's 0. Like I heard his name. Like that's the guy I want in my 0 spot of anybody.
I will also say, Steve, I'm pretty sure you're the one who came up with this idea for this.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so yes, you both have already taken up your 5+ fantasy points, 10+ and 20+ already, which leaves the next 2 players that I select for you guys will be going in the 0 fantasy points category. Nick Fryer, your dude is DJ LeMahieu.
So I'm not going to be able to use my pass and all this. I'm really disappointed because I was thinking about using. I was gonna pass DJ LeMahieu because I look at this spot and it's like, oof, he's going up against Max Scherzer tonight. I know he's listed. Peterson's listed as a starter tonight on DraftKings, but if you look everywhere, Scherzer's supposed to be starting. It's his birthday, and there's no way DJ LeMahieu's going to do anything against him tonight. So when I look at what we got available, absolutely, like he was 4 for 9 in his career against Scherzer, but he's only got 4 extra base hits against right-handed pitching this month. Ton of ground balls, 56.1% ground ball rate. I know he's at 5.4K tonight, but this is why I would have preferred Duran in this spot, but it's still I like LeMahieu at 0 for sure tonight.
All right, cool, Steven. That leaves then with you, Francisco Lindor. Oh my God.
That's brutal too because
that really is.
Domingo Germán has been, we saw him for only 3 innings thus far. It was the 3 innings he certainly wants to forget about because he gave up, I think it was 5 runs in that 5 runs on 6 hits in that game against the Astros. And he's historically been a slow starter coming out of the gate, has over a 5 ERA the first time through the order last year, and that was over a span of 70+ innings. So he's somebody that starts out of the gate fast. So I guess in this sense, we're hoping that Lindor just has an off night, because I quite honestly think the Mets are going to be an offensive juggernaut early in this game against Germán. I would not expect him to be going deep into this game. They knock him out early. So I guess because this is how the rules are, I'm putting Lindor in the 0 spot.
Yeah.
But if we're being honest, if I would able to choose anything here, he'd be going in the 10+ spot for me tonight.
Okay, that is good to know, and we'll see how everyone. We'll see how this all turns out next week when we bring you 2 back for What's in the Hat. And thank you to Billy for your participation in this, and as well as Howie, Steve's favorite teammate here at DK. We got one more block to go. We got Jeff. We got Len standing by. Will Zalatoris, is he worthy of being in the 10K range at the Rocket Mortgage Classic? And a question that we will receive an answer to after this.
Oh, that.
All right, when it comes to the Rocket Mortgage Classic, we have done the sports betting thing left and right, Monday and Tuesday show here on The Sweat. So today, Wednesday, Len Hochberg kind of hops on board with us. Jeff Ulrich always comes back, talks about the same thing he's been talking about for the previous 2 days. We're going to talk some DFS here. So when we're looking on DraftKings, This week, there's a very small group of guys in the 10K plus range. Cantlay, Finau, Zalatoris, Cam Young. We've heard Jeff, he's had to take cold showers consistently this week when he talks about Cam Young in the betting market. But is he worth the price in DFS, Len? Or is it going to be someone like Will Zalatoris? Is he a better option up there? What do you tell me?
No, I'm with Jeff. Not in the shower, but on Cam Young. I do like him a lot. This is a course where there is not a lot to impede the golfers from going low. The scores could be really high, north of 20 under. Cam Young has shown that he is maybe the poster boy now for bomb and gouge with Bryson DeChambeau somewhere not here, not there, wherever he is. I like him a lot this week. We've seen him go low. He's gone north of 20 under at the Sanderson Farms. Heck, he almost did it at the Open Championship. He is top 10 in birdies, birdie average, birdie percentage. So I am on board with Jeff on Cam Young. I also like Patrick Cantlay for the same reasons. Heck, we saw him get to 26 under at Kapalua. You were going to have to go low. You were going to have to be aggressive and make birdies.
All right, Jeff, again, we know how you feel about Cam, but what about Willie Z? I mean, can you talk to me here about him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Zalatoris. I like tougher setups for Zalatoris. You just can't trust that putting stroke, in my opinion, to get you to 20 plus under. But here's the thing. And this is the difference between betting and DFS. In DFS, we're talking big fields. We have ownership projections and things like that to take into account. After no one playing Cam Young at the Open Championship, it seems like everyone is now playing Cam Young. And it's always a little bit of cause for concern. So I think that the guy right underneath Cameron Young and Max Homa is probably the pivot. This is a player in Max Homa who's won, 4 times now on the PGA Tour? Cameron Young is great. He's great, but he's still a young player, and he's still prone to, perhaps just not quite putting it all together because he hasn't done that. He still hasn't won. Max Homa at 9,900 has won. He comes into setups like this and can go low. He can get confidence with the putter. He's a great par 5 scorer. He's got everything that you like. So Zalatoris, Young, I like these guys, but I think that for DFS, it's just a different game we're talking about, and that's the difference between the Tuesday and the Wednesday segment. We got strategy like this. I think Max Homa, I think even Cameron Davis, starting with those two and perhaps even bypassing the 10K range is a really interesting way to start DFS lineups.
Yeah, and I totally forgot. He was 6 under through 2 rounds last year, talking Willie Z at this event, but then he imploded over the weekend. Although you look at his top 5s, 3 of them in his last 6 starts. But so you say, Jeff, then bypass the 10K range, and there seems to be a lot more dudes to choose from in the 7 to 8K range in this field. So who was someone who you could give some leverage to in your lineup, could help your lineups have some leverage?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another thing. You can still play Cameron Young if you like him, because I think that a stars and scrubs strategy, going down into the low 7K range this week, there's a lot of playable players. With Cantlay and a couple extra guys in the field, a lot of the salaries have just kind of drifted down. And we're talking about players who maybe they're not household names, but we got Callum Tarrant coming off a top 10. We got Michael Glickich at 7,000 who's been playing really well. These are players who set up really, really nicely for the course this week. And look, you can still play in the mid 7K range. Cameron Champ, a player I've mentioned in the betting market this week, is 7,600. Cameron Champ demolishes par 5s, and now he's got 4 easy par 5s to beat up on here at Detroit Golf Club. So, you can take these upside players, guys who've been playing well. Cameron Champ has finally broke his missed cut streak, but this is a player who doesn't need much to gain confidence. I think he's very playable. Taylor Pendrick is another guy I wrote up. There is a ton of players in the 7K range this week that I think you can load up on, and it really makes an attractive, stars and scrubs, 2 guys in the 9K, maybe 1 guy in the 10K, maybe 2 guys in the 10K range kind of build for DFS. So, I could go on and on. There's probably 10 players we could talk about here that I think are very viable and have a lot of upside for DFS. The 7K range for me is where it's at for DFS this week.
Len, do you agree? Do you feel like this is just options galore in this range that, guys who are going to be playing the weekend and build up a bunch of points for your lineup?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of guys up and down. I agree with Jeff on that. Again, I want to mention, you asked me 7, 8K range. I want to mention one guy just above the 8K range at 9-1, Kevin Kisner. This is, he checks off every box this week at a very affordable price. Short course, a lot of birdies. 8,800, Maverick McNeely, second on tour in eagles per hole. Aggressive players this week. We want birdies, and there's not a lot of trouble to really get into. There's only water on one hole. It's completely unlike last week. 7,700, Scott Stallings. He is all or nothing. His last 5 starts, 3 top 10s, 2 missed cuts, getting a little bit lower down. Ju Young Kim, 7,600, really starting to show that he can play on the PGA Tour, and he has a lot to play for. He has to finish equivalent inside the top 125 to get his card for next year. And 7,100, Callum Tarrant is a guy I have an eye on, like Jeff mentioned, and also Grayson Sigg. I think I mentioned him last week. He's coming off a top 10.
Yeah, I like the McNeely call because he's above average in strokes gained off the tee and driving distance. We all know he thrives on easier courses and has a T21 and a T8 here on this course and at this event. Len, how about someone you were totally fading this week?
Yeah, I always wary of using the word fade because you really ask me about bigger name guys, and it's always dangerous to completely fade them. But Will Zalatoris seems to do his best work on the harder tracks, longer, harder courses. He has yet to really show and really contend at the really easy ones like some of the other top guys. Same thing with Max Homa. Max Homa wins a lot, plays well, but he's always doing it on the harder tracks, not necessarily the longer tracks, but it doesn't go super low in his victories. So I'm a little wary there. And one little nugget about Will Zalatoris, in his next start after a major this year, the first 3 majors, he's missed the cut every time, no matter the duration of his break. This is his first start since the Open Championship.
Okay, I mean, Jeff, you kind of alluded to that as well, how he just doesn't tend to really step up when it's a lesser field event.
No, exactly. And look, Len always brings a great stat like that for one of these players, and that's a great one. I mean, I like looking at players after majors performance too, and I think Zalatoris is just set up as too easy a fade this week. So that's a good one. I'm going to take a harder stance, and I know we've talked about Maverick McNeely here, but even at 8,800, like, again, we got to talk strategy a little bit. I mean, like, this is a player who's fine. He makes a lot of cuts. Not necessarily down on him, but he doesn't necessarily produce a ton of upside play. And I think at 8,800, he's going to be very popular. I really like Denny McCarthy just above him, who's priced up this week. People are going to look at that price tag and say, why is this guy 8,900? Maverick McNeely's 8,800. But McCarthy has been ball striking. He's been very, very good of late. He's produced 2 top 10s. One of them was at the U.S. Open. I really like Denny McCarthy this week. I just rather play him. I also think you look down. You want a true tournament pivot for your DFS lineups. Davis Riley coming off a missed cut. Like, I'm sorry, I will take the upside of Davis Riley long term over Maverick McNeely. It's not really that I hate McNeely. I actually think he's a good cash game play this week. But for tournaments, I think Riley and even McCarthy just offer me offer me lower ownership with similar or better upside. So give me those 2 players. We'll fade McNeely this week, and Reed can come on Monday and laugh at me when he wins the event.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure he'll be laughing at you tonight when we host the slate at 5 o'clock. Finally, guys, your favorite DFS play for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Go ahead, Jeff.
This one's easy. Chris Kirk, who we haven't really talked about in terms of value, he's just too cheap this week. He's 7,800. It's a player with top 10 at the PGA Championship. He grinded out a nice made cut at the Open after starting 3 over. Tee to green, this guy is absolutely insane. 14 straight PGA Tour starts, gaining strokes off the tee. He's long off the tee. He's straight off the tee. And if that putter gets hot, he's gonna go low on this course. He's been T21, T12 here the last 2 years. Love the price on Chris Kirk this week at 7,800.
Yeah, he's going to be on the short list of favorites, I think, each of the next 2 weeks. Len, where are you going here?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Kevin Kisner. I like his price at 9,100. I could have seen it a little bit more. Imagine if he was $200 less, and then psychologically we'd see him in the 8,000s, and then it would even be better. But we need aggressive players. We need guys who can get hot and go low. And he, like I said, he checks off all the boxes for me. I could see playing a lineup where he is my top guy and then going into the 8s and the 7s and filling out the other 5 guys.
Yeah, he's cashing in on courses that fit his eye and his style, and this is definitely one of them. T46, 3, and then T8 here the last 2 years. So that's it, everybody. That's all the golf. But I have an exclusive text here from Reed T. Fowler, who's doing PGA Tour live coverage. You see where he's at, Jeff?
I do.
Our homeland. Bring it on in. The Chili's in the Jacksonville airport. Jeff and I just received this text moments ago. This is live television, internet television, folks, and he'll be with us tonight, 5 o'clock Wednesday edition of the slate, we'll dive into more bets and DFS talk for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And then this show's back here live in studio tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Len, good seeing you. Good seeing you, everybody. Thanks for watching.